What is the job of a former Prime Minister?
And that's a question I've never been asked before, so you stumped me. I think it's whatever you decide you want to make it. But I think the strange thing is about politics, is especially when you're in government, is you're obviously, I sometimes say you start at your least capable and most popular, and you end often in politics at your least popular but most capable. I think one of the things that you do is learn over time how to do the job better, and therefore when you finish, it's strange if you don't make use of that experience. And I often reflect now when I'm seeing other former prime ministers I work with in my institute, that they can talk to leaders in a language the leaders understand because they've done the job and they've been there. And you do learn a lot from doing it, and it's one of the very few walks of life in which people can both come into a senior position without really any experience of having done it before, and then leave it without people ever trying to learn from the experience they've then acquired.
Yeah. And why did you write the book? And who is the audience in mind that you have for it?
Well, the audience are people who are either in government or want to be in government. But in fact, I think the leadership skills are pretty much the same, whatever you're trying to do. So people who've read it and who are running companies or even just community organizations, they get a certain amount from just the lessons of leadership that you can apply across the piece. But I wrote it because over time, not just in the work I did when I was Prime Minister, and that's more than 10-year stint, so that's a long time to be doing it, but also, we work in roughly 45 countries now, so we've got relations with leaders all over the world. And what is interesting, and the reason in the end I decided to put it all down in writing, but try and put it in a simple form, is that you realize the lessons are the same in whatever, even though countries differ enormously at their stages of development and their potential, the actual lessons of leadership are pretty much the same.
There's a whole sort of industry around Masters of Business Administration. Why do you think that doesn't exist around government so much? Because this probably is the best instruction manual I've come across for government, and it's a book I wish I could have read pre-number 10 working in there. Why do you think that just doesn't exist as much?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think the answer is because people regard government and politics as the same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas when you actually get into government, you realize there's politics and there's government, but the governing part of it is really about executive capability. The politics part of it is all about politics. I mean, it's so getting the right narrative, persuading people, going out and doing the glad handing, mounting the political campaign. When you're in government, it's very similar to running a company or an organization, except more complicated, because you've got lots of different interests that obstruct change. But the actual process of leadership in terms of getting things done is, that's the hardest thing about government, getting anything done.
Yeah.
I used to say to people, I'd sit in Downing Street at the beginning and think, look, I'm Prime Minister, I've got a huge majority in Parliament. I therefore am, in theory at least, the most powerful person in the country. So if I take a decision in that cabinet room, then presumably something happens. And after a time, you realize nothing happens. So you have to go back and then focus on implementation.
And how do you make sure that things do happen? I remember you talking on stage with William Hague as well at your conference, and you both having the same thing of, well, yeah, I'm one of the most important people in the country. I say something, therefore it should happen. But as you say there, it's not. What's the one thing that leaders can put in place to make sure their decisions are carried out by the system?
Well, I came to the view, and this is why we changed the way that government operated at the centre in my second term, that you need an actual implementation focus. So we called it a delivery unit, but you can call it whatever you like, which take your key priorities and just track their implementation, so that all the time you're getting feedback as to what you said would happen, what is happening, and what needs to bridge the gap between the two.